Amish Shah, welcome to the Entrepreneur Next Door. You're actually one of my guests that's kind of next door. We're both in New York. A lot of podcasters spend way too much time kissing, hugging their guests. I'm just going to sum it up by saying I'm truly honored that you said yes because your story is fascinating. And I'm really looking forward to an amazing conversation. So, why don't we start by as I've always asked my guests, don't reveal too many secrets. Just sort of like a 60-second, 90-second pitch. What's Amish's story? Who are you?
Thank you so much, Zeb, for inviting me. It's really a pleasure and honor. Um, as the entrepreneur next door, as you said, um, what's my story? My 90-second pitch about my story is I am a third generation jeweler who is termed as the black sheep because by the age of 12, he was instead of playing in the playground or asking his dad about jewels, was wiring up the house and making technology products. Wrote a book by the age of 13. Should have been in the jewelry business just like every jeweler's son by the time they turned 18, was sent to the factory, learned everything, and said, "This is boring." You don't want to change. You want to do everything the same way over and over. And his grandfather told him, "You were born in the jewelry business. You're going to stay in the jewelry business." And that was the last of my uh, formal technology education. Everything after that was learning by myself. Took 10 years and a lot of courage to go back to granddad and said, "Let me go. Let me find something for myself." And that blessing today in that he gave in January 2001 has led me from has turned me into the jeweler he wanted, but more importantly, turned me into the jeweler of the future. And Zev, that's my story in
It's
90 seconds.
yeah, no, it well, beautiful. You come from India, and when I was trying to get you on my show, I mentioned to you that I have a pretty well-connected Indian community, both here and in India, as one of my roles as a marketing professor for Amity University. Uh, got to meet hundreds of Indian students that come here for 3 months immersion and teaching them about entrepreneurship and marketing. But even in my 20 years in the medical industry, I was very well connected with people from India. And I don't want people to underestimate that when you say, I went to Granddad and asked him to release me or let me go. The Indian culture and the familial nucleus is incredibly tight. That's sort of like what makes India what it is, right? It's as big as it is, the individual families are so closely aligned. And as some of my guests who were from India on the podcast said, look, there's one thing I learned about Indians. You don't get too many choices about your future. You're going to be a doctor, an engineer, or an accountant. Uh, and right, it's kind of similar to my
It's
Jewish upbringing in Israel.
uh, uh, the way the culture is, and when you're young and you're like, I want freedom, and I want to go do everything myself. That's one thing. But growing up, you understand and learn values, you understand culture. And I say that growing up, I was blessed, like many of us who have grown up in India, that three generations stayed in the same home. And I'm a firm believer that it's the grandfather and the grandmother that actually impart culture into the grandchildren. I stayed around my granddad for almost 22 years growing up, which to a lot of kids in the modern age would like, oh my God, holding his finger, going to the garden almost every evening for a walk, listening to him talking to all his friends, and learning and continuously absorbing. But along with that, the most important thing, I understood the values of staying close, staying tight, holding the family very, very tight. And this is an integral strength of the culture. Not that I don't see it in America. You know, once you leave New York City, which I don't consider America, New York City is a country by itself.
Mhm.
You go to the Midwest and you go into real America. I have friends where I see the grandfather, the son, and the grandchildren so tight and close and with these same values. So, yes, of course, coming back, I would say that we are asking my grandfather for permission. Once again, would sound very unusual to the kids today. Would say, "Oh, this is what I want to do, and I'm leaving."
Mm.
Is very different. That growing up, when he said you were born a jeweler, you're staying in the jewelry business. I was given scholarship by two universities globally to go do my master's in computers, and I put everything away, went back to and went to learn jewelry and diamonds. And I see it as a blessing because had he not turned me in that direction, I wouldn't be the techie jeweler today. Became a catalyst to the changing diamond industry, industry that has been around for 100 years. It was his blessings and learning the industry and then using the passion of technology and disrupting it to hopefully, and where I believe it's happening, is now bridging to the future of diamonds and the future of jewelry.
Perfect. So, for people who are tuned in and listening, I want to set everyone up to what will be, from my perspective as a former graduate marquee professor, absolute case study of everything you would need to know if you are an entrepreneur thinking about starting a business and if you are an existing business owner. So, this is an MBA class in an hour because the story, what we're going to cover today is a story about family owned business. It's a story about leaving the family owned business. It's a story about disrupting an industry. And we'll talk about the word disruption because a lot of people misunderstand it. It's a story about what a brand is and why a brand is so critical to your success. It's a story personally intriguing to me because I'm a marketing guy, and this is a story about changing consumer behavior, one of the most challenging aspects of any business, right? You can disrupt, but then you still have to change people's behaviors. That is incredibly difficult. Um, and as a bonus, if you're planning to get engaged soon, or you have a memorable milestone anniversary 10, 15, 25, 50 years where everybody gives each other diamonds, listen to this podcast because you're going to thank us later. Not me, but you, Amish. So I'm incredibly honored to have you. When I was a graduate professor, I was teaching a case study about De Beers, and I think for most people the name is probably unknown, despite the fact that they spend. When I was growing up, they used to spend a fortune. So De Beer is really synonymous with diamonds, right? This is the royal brand name in the diamond industry, right? And they're the ones that coined, I think, the tagline on "A diamond is forever," right?
Very, very true.
Okay. Um, so you grew up in a jewelry business, and then at some point you wind up in New York, and there is no other place in New York to play with jewelry except 47th Street Photo. I'm said photo. I'm sorry, 47th Street. 47th Street Photo was an appliance store owned by
That's very, very true.
Orthodox
It was still there when I
Orthodox
came.
Jews. Yeah, so it was really the Amazon of appliances way before Amazon came into being. But anyway, so 47th Street is really the diamond mecca, the center of diamonds. You went to work there, so tell me about that experience. You went to work for a guy, and I know you were fired, so I'm gonna stop because you're gonna tell the story.
Wow. You have surely read a good amount in me.
I
Uh,
did.
so, Zeb, I would like to start by saying you said something interesting, disruption. and then I'll come to the story. Disruption is not destruction. It's actually a form of innovation. It's all about how we see it or how it's presented. Coming to my story about one, I came from India about three times between 1996 and 2001. And each time when I came to New York and tried to start, our family's been around in the diamond trade in New York since 1970s. And granddad and dad said, go work with your uncle. And what I learned was that everything was being done the same old way. It was a structured process, and there was almost no room for change. So, you spend 3 months, you spend 6 months, and I was like, wait a second, this is not for me. So the first time I went back home, the second time I went back home, and the third time my parents, like, as a father and mother, they're like, okay, what's wrong with you? You know? So finally, after granddad, when he blessed and he said, okay, go find something for yourself. Coming to New York was the very first time I came in with the family, there was a nice house, there was a car, there was help. Now I was on my own with starting with a $40,000 job that I managed to get because of a common connect who had originally worked in our family, and he then worked for the family where I took the job. Even if it was 20 years ago, 40,000 wasn't a lot of money in New York City. A studio in Queens. So anybody who's from New York will know a studio in Rego Park in Queens. I had never really traveled in the subways or trains, even in India or anywhere in the world, and started with the coins of MetroCard, and I started my journey. Um, Joining in a company with 54 people with the excitement that, oh, you know what? I came in from India. Indian companies are backward. I think I'm going to join this American company. It's going to be so much modern. And I walk in and I'm like, my God, 54 people and two computers. I said, wait a second. Did I just like go backwards? I thought I was moving forwards. And that was the beginning. The journey over the next 12 months, like you said, was getting fired 3 times and getting rehired the same day. I couldn't calibrate or sink in with the culture because you couldn't make decisions on your own. The decisions only came from the top. So, it was a traditional family business, very, very respected family. The business ran where there were 54 people, but there were only two people making decisions of the entire business. So it doesn't matter how smart you are. At the end of the day, the decision was just to be implemented. Technology, when you have two computers and 54 people, so you can think of how much paper we were moving on a continuous basis. And as a techie who was overclocking computers in the late 90s, this was like, oh my God, but now I have to remember, wait a second, I left a family, I barely got a job, and now I have bills. So learning that, I still, of course, I got fired 2 times. And the third time, the ownerships gave me the final warning, and he put me on road to go sell. This journey was very unique because the few customers I went in, and my very first customer, and this is so interesting, the total revenue of the year used to be a little over $5,000 with that customer. When you're the new kid in the sales room, they give you, I would say, in the nicest way, they give you the accounts that are like so poorly performing, like they're waiting to laugh at you getting punched by those customers. And I walked out with a $54,000 order from that client who called the owner and said that this kid is amazing. And he's like, what did he do? He's like, he was here the whole day. He worked in the store. He worked the product. He knows how to produce it. He knows how to price it. And that was one. And then it happened one after the other. But then what changed everything was a meeting that happened whereby I was taking notes. And I'll repeat, I was just taking notes. and they were talking production numbers. Now, you have to keep in mind, I came from a production background from India. I learned that almost 10 years ago, even before most of them in the room. And they're talking, this is $58 a gram, and we can produce it this way. And my brain's running. I'm like, wait a second, I can produce this for 26. Now, I am a mathematics student. I scored the highest at state level in India in 400,000 students. Uh, and the way I grew up was dad used to say, make the total of the license plate in the front of the car that's passing. So if a license plate was passing, I could just read the numbers and give you the total to the last single digit. So I'm doing the math. I walk out and I tell the owner, I'm like, I can produce this for less than half. And I know who makes these in Germany, India, and China. Everybody loves the sound of money.
Mhm.
And he said, can you prove it? I said, give me 7 days and I will do it. I flew out between Germany, India, and China. I put the whole plan together. 4 days after I came back, he was on the plane with me. We did X million dollars that year, which was a great start. The year after, we tripled the revenue. Margins were doubled. We improved the product. And this kid who was sitting in the back room where there were stacks of papers with almost no computer now got his opportunity. And I became the new conversation with finally getting the opportunity to say, I think we can bring change. And that was my beginnings.
So I think, well, before I think, the 47th Street diamond industry is pretty much dominated by Orthodox Jews, right? And it's a it's an industry that's based on handshake level of trust. And the reason it works over generation is because if I shake your hand and you promise to do something for me, and your word is not your word, because it's such a close knit industry, you're basically going to be out of business. No one's going to do business with you. So it's a
Right.
right. It's an incredibly tight knit community. But what's the total revenue the 47th Street generates per year? I used to know it when I did the De Beers case study, but
It's it would probably be a crazy number running in billions of dollars. 47th Street, just like Mumbai or Tel Aviv or Antwerp, holds a very strong position. Of course, it's the largest distribution center for United States. But like what you said, in the diamond and the jewelry industry, the culture is based on trust. It's been going on, 3 generations for our family. Once we commit, we deliver. There is no second. It's not about profit and loss. It's not about anything. If you commit, you deliver.
so they so they so they let an Indian boy into the inner circle because somebody knew your family, right? So you didn't come in cold, but you were able to at least get a chance.
Actually, not.
No,
So
so how'd
this
you
is
get that
very
job?
interesting. When I applied for that job, the gentleman who worked for us, Lloyd, had worked for my uncle. But if I was going to work for non-Indian family without telling my family, because he would be like, are you crazy? You're already a black sheep. Now you're going to go cross culture and actually take a job. So, which would be disrespect multiplied by. I never actually told anybody except my dad and mom and told them not to tell anybody that I took a job at a Jewish family. And of course, the ownership did run some background on me, who I was and as such. But I got the job not based purely on the family background or the history, because I didn't even, I was almost trying not to put it on. But certain things I went, I had 11 interviews, and I've never had an interview in my life because I had 140 people reporting to me when I was 21. So I had never done a resume. And I remember the second time I met them, and they're like, do you have a resume? And I'm like, what is that? And this is a true question. I asked, I said, what is that? He's like, can you write on a piece of paper everything you do? And what was your background? I said, I ran a business, I ran a factory, I ran a company. And they're like, okay. So I think what I believe, and something like you said at the in the podcast, for the listeners, it's about what you believe in. It's your confidence. You know, uh, I was a 26-year-old kid who sat across a gentleman, very highly respected, very, very powerful people, in their community, in the business. And I told them that I could bring change. I could go around the world and source, and I could source much better than anybody they had, even without knowing who was there and all the seniors they must have had. I mean, I presume they had in the company. I told them what my background was, my speed of doing math. It's your personal confidence that puts you out there that's far more powerful than your resume. It's the same thing I use today when I meet somebody. When they give me a piece of paper, I turn it upside down and say, let's talk. Because a resume tells me everything you've done. But when I talk to you, it tells me who you are.
Yeah.
And all know that it's who you are that's going to determine what you can do. What you did was based on situation, your opportunity, and everything. And I think the one thing I learned leaving the family and coming into uh, this family was that I found that opportunity, that one meeting of taking a $58 a gram and bringing it down to 26, building that plan, and the belief when I had really nothing in my pocket. And it didn't matter. It was all about this is an opportunity and I'm going to go after it.
So, kudos to, I think you may have mentioned his name in the hours I spent studying. You may have been Goldberg or one of those people. The owner of this company, he deserves credit for this because
Richard
this does,
Grossman. Yes,
yeah,
he deserves
this,
all the credit for
yeah,
finding and giving me the opportunity.
because this does not happen in such a close knit community. They're going to hire, if they hire people, they're going to hire Jews, Orthodox Jews who come recommended by somebody that knows somebody. This does not, it's pretty rare. So, for my audience, in case you didn't guess by now, we're talking about diamonds. We're talking about the diamond industry and Amish family in India, 3 generations, jewelers, know everything about jewelry. And Amish comes to New York in search of fame and fortune, and you discover that this industry needs to be disrupted. Okay. And I think you said the word disruption is innovation. I want to add another layer to disruption because people, it's funny how it has a negative connotation, right?
True?
Like disruption is like, oh, I'm going to walk into a room, throw a grenade, and then see what's left just to shake things up. No, disruption from a marketing perspective is looking at an industry and identifying that there is some unmet need that has been gone unnoticed for generations and having the courage to say, you know what, this needs change. Use the word innovation because we'll get into your entry into the diamond industry, how you disrupted by innovating. But for me as a marketing guy, the disruption piece is there is there's a problem that has not been solved to the satisfaction of our consumers. People are going about doing what they have to do within the industry,
True.
but there's frustrations, there's other things that just not been addressed. And typically it might be industries that are tough to break in. But for example, I used to say, why do people need ATM machines, right? The ATM disrupted the banking industry. All of a sudden, you completely negated the clerk in the bank, the teller, and I don't need you anymore. Well, why would you do that? Well, because people didn't want to stand online. People don't want to talk to a frustrating, cranky teller. They want to get into these issues. I just want money I want to go in and I want to go out. So, Amish, what did you find in this industry that your family's been in for generations that got you so riled up that you said this needs to change?
So, Zeb, uh, after I entered the industry, the early days of learning, which was in India about jewelry, diamonds, jewelry is a beautiful, uh, jewelry is something that's emotional, it's passionate, it's beautiful. So for the consumer, it's filled with happiness. Nobody buys jewelry when they're sad. But when you walk into the industry and you see how the industry has been running for the last 100 years, nothing's really changed. And what I mean by that is the supply chain was a controlled supply chain. How transactions happened was all controlled. There was no entry for newcomers. If you were born in the trade, you still had to do everything exactly how things were being done. And there was no space for innovation. For me, innovation is a continuous movement because just like how you said, it's it's about an unmet need. It's when you think about the consumer, you know, when you go to a jeweler, they tell you what to buy, what it is, and a good amount of consumers have really no say in where did this diamond come from? What is the origin? Can I know more about it? Everything is like a top guarded secret. Consumers have doubts in their minds. And then as the journey happened and the world evolved with internet, you started knowing what was happening in the back of the diamond industry for the last 100 years, how mining was being done, how the supply chains were, 11 hands were changing before the diamond came in the hands of the consumer. Now, when you look at all those things and then you stop for a moment and you say, wait a second, why don't we bring change? Why don't we open up this industry to evolving? It's like somebody had told me a while ago when cars came in, they were worried about the cleaners behind on the street that used to clean after the horse carriages. And the gentleman had said that when the horse carriages over time will get replaced by the first cars in 1945 and the taxis came into New York City, those cleaners will get a better job. And that's what I meant. Disruption is not destruction, it's a form of innovation that helps improve human lives.
Mm.
And when we look at this from the diamond industry, the opportunity of lab grown diamonds that came, that almost put me like a kid in a candy store in 2005, where I loved technology, like it was beyond. And then now, when somebody says we can grow diamonds, I was sitting and literally seeing a future that was going to change everything from the business.
So,
And
so yeah, I mean, so
that's
I want to pause for 1 second because I kept it mysterious on purpose. We finally got to why you're here and what you do that's disrupting, right? So we are used to diamonds that have been mined in whatever South Africa, whatever they're mined, uh, getting to a retail store or a jeweler in 47th Street, whichever way they get there. We know the diamond industry. We know the complexity of the sizes and then the quality rating, all that stuff. And so this young kid shows up and says, "There's a better way to do this. We can actually grow diamonds in a lab, right? It's almost like the IVF of diamonds, right? You're growing now diamonds uh, as opposed to mining them, and that's disruptive because everybody's used to mentally connected to a diamond can only be real if it's been mined somewhere and it got to me and I can look at it. So let's fast forward because I'm going to come back to the disruption and we'll dive into the branding and the challenge. But let's go to Javar, which is your company. Tell me what they do. I'm going to fast forward and we'll come back. So, what is Javar about?
Jivar represents jewelry with a conscience. During the journey of the entire evolution of lab grown diamonds, from 2016 when Alta was established, the last 7 to 8 years of the consumer adoption of lab grown diamonds, taking the knowledge and understanding all the questions that the consumers always asked in terms of where's this diamond coming from? Is this gold freshly mined? Where did this gold come from? Where is it made? There were so many questions about quality, everything, which, like I said, was always a close guarded secret. This is what started incubating the idea or giving birth to the idea that we needed to create an experience that the consumer can trust, that represents the jewelry of the future. A brand that stands on the pillars of innovation, sustainability, creativity. A brand that consumers can trust has the pillars very strongly of authenticity. So, with that, Javar was born, which is just now, starting to enter the marketplace as a luxury fine jewelry brand where quality and all these other questions are not conversations of marketing, but inherent in our DNA. It's like I always have said, sustainability is not a buzzword, it's in our DNA. And I'd said this 8 years ago, and people used to laugh at me. And I said, I started using recycled gold in 2016 because my plan was in 2005. But I said in 16, we actually made it happen. We stopped printing certificates of paper. We talk about sustainability, but we're cutting down trees and using paper and then laminating it when we can do electronic certs. We gave people guaranteed grading so the consumer does not have to doubt or only believe what the salesman told them. So every part of that experience was moved up. And most importantly, is at the end, design and creativity. What I would say, Javar not only represents jewelry that's designed, we design diamonds, we design jewelry. And it's an entire different conversation. And I believe that it'll be a brand that will keep setting up a benchmark for the fine jewelry of the future.
So, this is incredibly fascinating to me for so many on so many different levels. You mentioned in my research, I found that from the moment the diamond is mined until it gets to, let's, I don't know, we'll pick Nordstrom, okay, fine jewelry department, right? I believe there are 11 hands that touch that diamond throughout the
True.
process, right? From the mining piece to the showcase, it's 11 hands, which to me as a businessman, and of course to you because you're a mathematician, for every step in the 11th milestones, somebody needs to make money, right? There are
Ab-
markups. There are markups, markups, markups. Finally gets to the department store and at the retail. Interestingly, when I was in graduate school, I was working for a fine jewelry import company in the city.
oh,
All our jewelry came from Italy. There was all, chains and bracelets, and
right, right.
I was given as a graduate student, and I was the marketing director. But my job was to work with J.C. Penney. At the time, they were one of the big ones. They had 350 stores around the U.S. And I worked for, I remember his name. His name was Gary McMillan. He was the head buyer of the jewelry department for J.C. Penney. And I remember his name because the first thing I was told is when Gary McMillan calls, you drop everything and you run to 6th Avenue and J.C. Penney and you go see what he wants, right? And we were doing about $14 million with J.C. Penney. So The reason I mention it is because I saw the markup for the jewelry. Now, so we sold them a gold bracelet for $8, a thin one, right? They would sell it for 79, 89. And then the only time they really sold anything was back then, which was very common, the 50% jewelry sale, which happened on every holiday, right? But they still made a lot of money. So the point is, so I have a question, Amish. We know that diamonds are expensive. We know that especially if the diamond is rated as, I forgot, it's a letter thing. What's the highest letter rating for
Uh,
diamond?
it's on a gemological grading level,
Yeah.
their rate D color is the highest color, most premium color,
Okay.
and flawless is the highest clarity.
Okay. So we'll take that one. It still went through the 11 markups, right? It's part of the industry. There's too many hands touching it. So, Amish Shah, when I buy diamond, am I being ripped off?
I would have to say that that's how the industry was structured
Mm-hmm.
and that's how industry was set, managed, controlled. And that is why price list was published within the industry. A piece of paper was published every Friday that said what the price of those diamonds should be. It was not based on demand and supply. So if you ask me what bothered me growing up, it was 2000. The internet revolution was on, and we were still controlling prices. We were not telling the customer where the diamond was coming from. The customer was very about the gold caratage. Customer was very about the diamond quality. And 11 hands were changing, and you would never know where the diamond originated. There was a lot of all that happening. I wouldn't say, ripoff is a little rough.
It's New York speak. Yeah, New York speak. Yeah, sorry.
The way I would say is that you were paying a premium that was unwarranted.
Right. And like you said, and it's interesting because a lot of industries were disrupted by the internet because the knowledge, the word knowledge is power, because we have access to all the information, the knowledge of the power of having the knowledge in many industry transferred from the seller to the buyer who's not able to do research. For example, the car companies, right? Buying cars, you don't have to sit there and listen to the salesperson in the car in the dealership tell you all the BS stories he told you about how much they're losing money. You could find the invoice, you can find how much the options are. It transferred power because of knowledge. But here's an industry closely guarded, like some of the really, really high end brand names that control their pricing. And if you want to be a distributor, you better not mess around because they're not going to pull it out of you. Interestingly, because I know in some of your talks you talk about Elon Musk and Tesla, who's a disruptor. Um,
Right.
he came up with the Cybertruck, that weird looking truck that everybody, not everybody, people that can afford 100, 120,000 buy. But in their first year of production, when you signed a sales agreement to buy a Cybertruck, you also committed to not reselling the car for 1 year,
Very,
right?
very true.
Right.
Very,
So
very true.
another way of protecting a brand or something that's innovative. So um, we talked about the multiple hands that cause the diamond to cost that much. We know there's a level of ignorance on a consumer because we don't know anything about the diamond, right? A diamond is a diamond, right? But when I talk to business owners, people that are innovators, people that are software as a service companies, anybody that starts a business, my favorite question to ask them is, what problem are you solving? Right? So what problem is Javar solving for the consumer, right? We're talking about the consumer, right? People have been buying diamonds for gazillion years. You identified a problem that is solved by lab grown diamonds. What was it? Was it affordability?
Lab-grown diamonds democratized the entire industry. The affordability. I've always been very clear. we democratized diamonds. Diamonds were always aspirational, not affordable. We made them accessible. Less than 1% of people really were able to buy diamonds. And they have certain things that are behind the scenes that used to go on. Think of it, you mine 100 diamonds, 80 are industrial quality, 20 are gem quality based on science. Out of those 20, less than four diamonds should have ever come into the marketplace for the quality that a consumer really pays for. They kept selling the 20 diamonds to the consumer. That's what you used to buy at the departmental stores, and that's they have been buying.
Yeah.
100% of Jawar diamonds are equal to the top 1% of the diamonds that have ever been mined. Our diamond quality far supersedes the quality of most top brands. That's not primarily just the problem we're solving, but the entire experience of buying jewelry is about moments. You know, people buy jewelry to celebrate happy moments. It's either a gift, either a representation of a moment. This piece of jewelry should not cause stress. And I used to always joke, and because of my whole tech and data thing, I said, if you put a guy outside a jewelry store in the mall, and there's an Apple store that's probably like 300 meters away or 300 far away, and his wife girlfriend tells him, I'll be back in 20 minutes. Do you think he's going to go in and browse? It's one of the worst shopping experiences. He's going to find that Apple store and say, oh, I'll speed walk there, hang out for some time, and come back. It was the experience. When it came to jewelry, we had trust issues, sourcing issues, a lot of these things. What Jivar looks to solve, or what Jivar is answering, is very simple. A consumer who's looking to experience a beautiful piece of jewelry that has been designed to connect with him. So it's designed because designing in the traditional world was very restricted. It was very, very structured. We disrupted. We designed diamonds. I made diamond teddy bears. Our most recent collection that we debuted, and is now going to be in stores for fall. We can write your name in diamonds. I can write Zev, Z-E-V, in single diamond alphabets. This has never been done in the history of diamonds.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. So, we talked about disruption, we talked about innovation, we talked about you breaking away from a traditional jewelry family business into introducing tech into something that's been old-fashioned dinosaur style industry for years. And now we get to the part that intrigues me the most, which is the behavior change, right? The behavior change of how do you convince a consumer that everything they've known their entire life about diamonds is not true, because there is now an alternative. It's not true as in, if you're looking to invest in something to express your love and gratitude and admiration for a person, it doesn't have to be a mind diamond. Oh, by the way, because behavior change has to be about education, right? We, as in people like me who are not jewelers, are totally ignorant about where diamond comes from and the 11 steps that the markups that wind up leading to the high cost of diamond. And so I did research because I wanted to be educated about the thing that none of us understand, except if you watch the movie. What was it called? Blood Diamond? What was the movie that was made about the industry? Something like
Yes.
that, right? Which people don't even know. But here's a list of why mining for diamonds is so horrific from multiple layers of irresponsibility. We'll call them, right. I'm just gonna read off the bullet points, right? Environmental impact, ecosystem disturbance. Mining operations require extensive land clearance, leading to deforestation, and habitat destruction. Water pollution. The mining process leads to contamination of nearby water sources. Greenhouse gas emissions. The energy intensive nature of diamond mining contributes to carbon emissions. Significant. Water consumption. Diamond mining consumes vast amount of water, over 126 gallons per carat. Who knew? Social and economic. While diamond mining can provide economic benefits to countries where diamonds are found, they often come at a high environmental cost, right? Poor working conditions, child labor, inadequate wages, particularly in sub Saharan Africa. So I just ran off things that, at least today, there's a lot more awareness to everything I just listed out, right? The entire universe is worried about gas emissions and the global economy and warming. So my point is, when you buy a mined diamond, you are an active participant in causing all those things that are from a human to human perspective, working conditions, wages, global impact, all that stuff. Oh, by the way, there's an alternative. Amish is taking, by the way, so your lab grown diamonds start from a seed of a real diamond, right? So
And that's why when you said IVF,
correct.
uh,
That was my crazy brain was thinking about that, right? It's not like you taking fake stuff and you're making a diamond out of it. You're taking a real seed of a diamond, and I believe through your technology, proprietary technology, it takes what, 500 hours to.
it takes 600 hours. So you take a slice of a diamond. This is very important and very important for all the listeners and viewers. A lot of misconception sometimes happens when you think that something is produced by man. We think of it as, oh, maybe it's made of a chemical or substance. A diamond grows from a diamond. The seed that we start the diamond growth from is a diamond. The first diamonds we grew from earth mine diamonds. The seeds were earth mine diamonds. And importantly here, Zeb, the seed we use is among the purest type 2A diamonds ever found on earth. To give you an example that one could relate to, it's the diamond that Burton gave to Marilyn Monroe. It's the same crystal characteristics. For your listeners from Europe and Asia who know the Kohinoor diamond, every diamond that we grow has the same crystal characteristics as the Kohinoor diamond. That's how pure it is. So it's one of the purest diamonds that you can find scientifically. This slice of a diamond is polished and placed in a proprietary chamber. If you're old enough and you remember Star Trek, then you remember the chamber when he closed and pumped. It's one of those. If you're very young, think of a big globe where at the bottom of the chamber, we're arranging the diamond seeds that are like sliced squares. They're as thin as 0.05 millimeter, and they're placed in the bottom of the chamber. Once the chamber is closed and we raise the temperature to about 1000 degrees centigrade, about 1800 degree Fahrenheit, we pump in methane and a combination of some other gases. While again, the word gas is like, oh, wait a second, is there something wrong? No. Methane, as we all know, is purified carbon. It's the purest form. Once it hits a certain temperature, the carbon splits within that controlled atmosphere. This carbon then rain showers on the seed of the diamond that's at the bottom of the chamber. So, for a moment, if you wanted to visualize, you would visualize carbon particles that are rain showering on the seeds that are at the bottom of the chamber in this controlled environment. Layer by layer, and these are nano layers, the diamond grows. For a diamond that finishes cut and polished to approximately a 1 carat, it takes close to 600 hours in this controlled environment. At that point, we cool down the chamber. There is no unnecessary emission of gases or anything, just so everybody knows. What we have is a rough diamond that is now ready to be beautifully cut into a shape that a consumer would want. Very importantly, Zeb, I would love to add that Alter, which is the parent company of Jawar, we were the first company in the world to have 100/100 sustainability rating by SCS Global. 100% of the diamonds are grown using solar energy.
Hmm.
And so, from a perspective of energy, or as such, 100% solar energy and the entire supply chain is then monitored for the least amount of carbon emission. This is the future of diamonds. One part I would mention about mining, again, my family was in the business, so I always respect, I always say respect your past, learn from it as you move towards the future. Mining of any form is not healthy for the environment or for the earth. A lot of times people talk about diamonds helping the countries where they were found. And I've always said one thing very simply, and you may probably laugh on it. If diamonds were so good for the countries that they were mined in, why are these diamonds, why are these countries still poor while the companies that mined so rich?
Well, really powerful point. Um, so there's a couple quotes that I plucked out of the hours I spent studying you. Javar or lab grown diamond. And this goes back to the question that I posed, like the what problem are you solving, right? So here's what you're solving. It bridges the gap between desire and affordability, right? And we have to mention that um, I'm going from memory now. You had Greg Lamanis. You had a discussion with him, and I love the guy. And he's straightforward. You showed him a mine diamond and a Javar diamond side by side, and that's pretty much consistent. No one can tell the difference.
True.
Impossible. Except that if you study and learn like I did, you could tell the difference because the lab grown diamond, the Javar diamond, is actually, I don't know if it's 50% larger, but it's larger than an equivalent diamond, right? So if I took a 2 carat, the 2 carat, yours is bigger.
At the same price, you get a minimum of 50% larger. So if you were looking to spend X dollars and you were getting a nice earth mine diamond 1 carat at Javar, it would be between 2 and 2.5 carat. And it would be of a higher quality, not only mentioning the purest diamond crystal found on earth.
Next quote. One doesn't buy a diamond because it's grown in a machine or it comes from the earth. A diamond is bought by somebody when they want to represent how they feel about the other person, right? So we mentioned that it's a challenge of changing consumer behavior, right? We've all, you want a diamond, go to 47th Street, buy a diamond. Okay. No. There's an option now. The option is now lab grown diamond by Javar. Interestingly, this is your numbers. 62% of engagement rings are lab grown.
Yes, 62% of engagement rings in America today are lab-grown diamonds. And Zev, like you've mentioned, and of course, as a professor, you're very, you're the one who's taught a lot of kids like me who have now evolved into who we are, is that education is the most powerful marketing tool. When you empower and educate a consumer about the choices they have, they make the decisions that are aligned with their lifestyle, who they are. And this is the entire journey of lab grown diamonds. I've always said we haven't had 15 billboards in the United States, and we're at $15 billion of an industry created by the consumer when the big mammoth stalwarts and the respectable houses of diamonds that controlled this industry for 100 years believed that the consumer could never change this. They never understood the power of the consumer. And that's what we tapped on. When I came to the industry, I will never forget, and I do want to mention this, is that when I first time put out my first jewelry collection of lab grown diamonds, which was in 2006, it was first in the world. People were laughing. And you know, as a kid, when somebody laughs at you and what you believe in, you don't forget that.
Mhm.
And when I came back exactly 10 years and 1 day later, I was very clear. I'm going to tell the consumer of this choice and let them decide. And they have been deciding, and I brought it to 62% of engagement rings sold in America. By year end 2024, it'll be at about 68%. By 2026, 80% of all engagement rings will have lab grown diamonds in America. And fashion jewelry, which was about 4.5%, is now close to 10% and will be close to 50% of all new fashion jewelry that's coming into the industry in the next 3 years. And this is the power of the consumer. This is the power of education, not the power of billboards. This is the big change that professors like you have taught us, that if you educate and empower, consumer adaptation comes in. Learn from Uber. I learned from Tesla. When he built a car that was seductive, desirable, it had design, it had technology. And it was a very important thing. And like you asked the question on the jewelry, like what does Javar solve? Exactly what Tesla did when they put out the first S series. It wasn't about, let me make a cheap car that's going to give you a lot of mileage. He built a beautiful, seductive car, placed it on the first floor in a clothing departmental store for consumers to experience, where they touched the handles and looked at the screen, where they did not have to haggle with the salesman, and they could get an experience that gave them pride of ownership that today leads the entire conversation and disrupted an industry that was controlled by the three big houses from Detroit and a few houses globally. So
Yeah.
sorry for the long
Oh,
chat,
no, no,
but
no, no, no. It's fine. It's your show. It's I'm just the moderator. Um, and again, I want to go back to disruption because for me, disruption was uh, looking at things from a consumer perspective and improving the experience of repeating a form of consumption, right? No matter what it was. So, in the case of Uber, Uber disrupted the transportation industry, disrupted the way we go from point A to point B. In New York City, you can walk, you can take the subway, you can take the bus, right? You can take a cab. Good luck if it's raining. All those, the options were available, but the experience of going through them was so unproductive and unpleasant that people, when all of a sudden Uber shows up and said, look, you can go from point A to point B, you can see when the car's coming. You know who the guy is. You can tell how he's rating. It's a fixed price. You don't have to worry about the tip. And if you go to a meeting, you know exactly when you're going to get there, right? The experience change. JetBlue did the same thing for the airline industry. I'm looking for where the disruption from not the innovation but the experience of buying diamonds is here. And I think it's got to come back to, and I'm going to speak from a male perspective because this is, we're the guys that buy the diamonds, right? More often than not, right? And it's nerve wracking. The experience of thinking about the diamond and buying the diamond is nerve wracking because we're going to be measured by how much money we spent as a direct correlation to what we think about our wife, girlfriend, or whoever, right? I'm married up. My wife is classy. She likes nice stuff. Um, and this is an emotional thing, right? If I bought her a 4 carat diamond and she said, "Where'd you get it?" Whatever. I got it from Javar. Who's Javar? Oh, I looked them up. This is not real diamond. It's lab grown. I think this is the that's the education and the emotional transformation that needs to happen for the recipient of the diamond to recognize it's still a diamond. It started as a seed. Yes, we're using technology to do this, right? I'm thinking AI. AI is everywhere now. AI is artificial, right? When you respond to somebody using AI who that writes the response to you, everybody's doing it, and this is disrupting our entire universe. Why is that
So,
okay, right?
so here's if I want to say something. You brought up an amazing point. You know, when we started training in 2016, and I've done trainings around the world, we trained over 1,800 salespeople in person United States. That was my marketing budget. We went door to door and told every retailer that placed our product, we will train them in person. And the first thing I would open and I'd say, who believes this is fake? And some people would raise their hand, and I would help. It was education. It was the helping them understand that the diamond from below the earth and diamond from above the earth were both diamonds. When the Federal Trade Commission in 2018 gave a final ruling on July 24th that a diamond from above the earth was a diamond, just like a diamond from below the earth, removing the word natural from the dictionary that was put in 1957.
Hmm.
This changed everything. Also, one of the questions, and I want to say, tell you something that you said, like that they asked, what will he tell her when she asks, where did you get it? And of course, Javar wasn't there at that time. It was the early days of Alter. At that time, the question was, why lab grown? Oh, maybe because he can't afford it. Maybe, what education and empowering the consumer with a choice did is today the question is, why lab grown? Socially, geopolitically, economically, conscious consumers today make decisions that align with who they are. Created diamonds, lab grown diamonds, today are a sense of pride. They're a conversation among young couples as well as couples at every age. And a lot of people say, "Oh, this is a product for young people because he's 55. He's not going to go buy a lab grown." Our oldest customer was 87 years old. Because one other thing we have to remember, at any age group, find me a girl who doesn't want a larger and a more beautiful diamond. Be it your wife, be it any family member that you're gifting for any uh, precious moment. Because at the end of the day, the value is not in the diamond, the value is in the moment. The diamond stays, the jewelry, the piece of jewelry stays as a moment of representation. It's like a photograph that every time you look at that necklace that you gave your daughter when she was 16 and now she's 46, and she looks at it and tells her daughter, saying, "This is what my dad gave me on my 16th birthday." It's not about, oh, he bought a lab grown diamond.
Yeah.
Lab grown earth mine, and sorry, this is the last. Lab grown or earth mine does not determine your emotions, your love, your feelings for someone. Lab grown or earth mine is a choice you make. Lab grown is the choice of the future. Your emotions, your feelings, and why you picked a beautiful piece of jewelry from Javar to celebrate a moment with somebody you care, you love, is the most important thing. And that's what at Javar we represent. It's about that moment that you don't have to think about the quality, where it came from, any of those parts.
So Amish, just two quick questions on the business aspect of it. When I walk through the fine jewelry department store and I see the diamonds in the showcase, right, in the display case, does it have to say lab grown? Distinguish it from the De Beers? Are you required
So,
by FTC to do that?
yes, in
Okay.
2018, the Federal Trade Commission uh, helped to make it very clear for the consumer that all diamonds grown above the earth needed a clear disclosure with the word lab grown or created. So, grower or the manufacturer, like Alter, created diamonds in front of the word diamond. If somebody stated it as a diamond, it would be considered a diamond from below the earth.
Mm.
This was also to give complete transparency to the consumer rather than, again, something that this industry's always done before.
You know what I'm thinking about? Again, it's all about marketing and education, and Katrina can take this stuff and do something with it. But you know what? When they have movies and they show there are scenes of a horse being shot or animals being harmed, a lot of times, and even on TV, I think sometimes they'll have this disclosure that says no animals were harmed during the production of this movie because it's still a movie, it's all fake. So I'm thinking on under lab grown, it could say no humans were taken advantage of, the earth was not affected, and you're not being ripped off by getting a lab grown diamond. You can't tell the difference, right? It's
So
just,
I can say, Zeb, from what you said, and these are actually public numbers, for every 1 carat of diamond, over 100 square feet of land is moved. 100 square feet for every 1 carat. They only mined about 155 million carats a year.
yeah,
For every 1,000 people that worked, 8 people were injured. That doesn't happen in lab grown. These are lines that says we did no one
yeah,
was injured. We did not use 126 liters of water in countries where people don't have water to drink. We're not even going in those conversations. But if you think about it, when they say 126 liters of water, the countries where we're talking about mining, a lot of places people barely have drinking water.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, this look, this is it's an intriguing industry. I mean, uh, I have tremendous respect for your courage to to break away from family tradition and create something that on one hand services humanity and sustainability. Still work in progress in the US. I don't think enough people care about it, but it's getting in the right track. But at the same time, the key at the end of the day, it's about value, right? If I can get for the same amount of money, I can get a 50% larger diamond, uh, and it comes with a certificate. At some point, people will stop asking. Look, if I gave my wife a 4 carat diamond and a certificate that's beautifully packaged, because I'm sure that's what you do. Where did you get it? Whatever, I got it in a department store. Whatever I got, it doesn't make a difference. So I would like to reserve in the next few years a part two of the conversation to see how far along you've come, and I'm sure you will go far. And I will absolutely connect everyone with you on the show notes. If you go to javar.co, jevar.co, that's Amish's brand name in the company. And by the way, there's a fascinating video of how the diamonds are actually produced. Really, really slick, but very, very, very impressive. And so, like everything else in human behavior, we just got to get over our hang-ups and things that we were told for years, and have the openness to try something new. Um, and I guess the message is a lab grown diamond does not mean I love you less. Actually, I'm giving you 50% bigger diamonds. So you should be happy. I spent pretty much the same amount of money. Um, Amish, totally and very, very grateful that you said yes to doing this. Uh, we will stay in touch, and I truly appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Zev. I truly, truly appreciate um, from And on behalf of the lab grown industry, I want to thank you because uh, it is, like I said, we don't have 15 billboards in the country, just like Uber or Tesla doesn't have billboards. It's the consumer adaptation that has grown the category. Jivar, the name, and I want to take a minute and tell you about it. The name was given to me by my dad uh, when I was working very hard to find a name that would connect with the consumer. Jivar means jewelry. Jivar was the word used over 1,000 years ago in India to represent jewels that men and women wore for adornment.
Hmm.
And I took the word because that's what dad still uses when he talks to me. He doesn't say jewelry, he says javarat, which is the traditional word in India. Uh, and we look forward to connect with the consumer and offer them a choice where the design reflects who they are and speaks for the emotion, the passion, and the moment. The components are where they don't have, they're fully trusted and they don't have to think where they came from because instead of 11 hands, it's grown by altar, it's cut and polished by us, designed by us, made by us with recycled metals, finished and brought to the consumer. With
And and
certification,
and nobody was harmed in the process of creating that.
and nobody was harmed in the process, with diamonds grown with solar energy, and most important is an experience and having a sense of pride. When it's a brand has to give a sense of pride of ownership. And that's what Javar aspires to be. And I really thank you for inviting me and giving Javar this exposure with your viewers and listeners. And please reach out to us for any questions uh, or as such. And I'm always, and especially when it comes to lab grown diamonds, if any of your viewers has questions that they can reach out to you, reach
Hmm.
out to us, and love to
Absolutely.
educate. And it's not about sales. I would love to educate anyone and everyone because knowledge is power. So
Yeah.
thank
And
you.
and and by the way, if my wife wears a 5 carat diamond, people would say, "Oh wow." They'd never say, "Where did you buy it?" Right? And if it's lab grown or not, it's still an investment and it's pure. And I think the key is no one is being harmed by in the production process, and you're you're not getting ripped off. I hate to use that New York type of
I
word,
know,
but
but and one thing, Xavier said something so amazing right now because, when you give him or her a beautiful jewel, the investment you make is in the moment, in the emotion, in the relationship. The jewel is just a representation.
yeah,
Lab grown
it's
diamonds and Jabbar represent the future of fine jewelry. A consumer at the age of 13, which is my brother's daughter, wants a beautiful pink diamond. And I'm like, okay. Every year she's like, Uncle. So at her age, or somebody who's 80 years old, this is the diamond, this is the jewel of the future. And I think
yeah,
that's what we present. This is the innovation. Instead of saying disruption, now I'll say this is the innovation that the industry is evolving to. It's taken hardship for many who have not adopted it or the industry, but like the world has to evolve. It's going to help humanity. We need to, it's going to stop digging and making big holes in the earth. Let's leave the earth the way we got it.
hmm, yep.
There's
Uh,
many things that we can do than make a hole to get a diamond to represent a moment. I think for those beautiful, loving moments, let's not make a hole.
there you go. And so your tagline, Javar bridges the gap between desire and affordability. while protecting the beautiful world we live in. So here we go. Amish, thank you so much. We'll be in touch. It's been a
Thank you so
pleasure.
much for the time and inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you.